On this episode of the Tuff Juice podcast, we had the opportunity to sit down with the CEO, the boss man himself of SpringHill Entertainment, Maverick Carter. And he talked about so many things. Got into the importance of ownership and what is ownership. He also talked about some of the guys that he idolized growing up and some of his biggest mentors in the game, ranging from Jay-Z and so many more. And also, LeBron James learned how to drive in a Caprice Chevy, and he taught him? This is crazy. Be sure to subscribe to the Tuff Juice podcast on the Himalaya app or wherever you get your pods. Well, first and foremost, man, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I want to dive into your beginning. You know, a lot of people see you on social media and see you in the pictures and in the frame and everything, but I want to talk about just the beginning and how you came up.
Well, I came up from Akron, Ohio. Grew up north side of Akron. Is really the foundation of everything I am, of who I am today, the way I think, the way I am. Raised by my mom and my dad and a whole lot of aunts and uncles. My dad has 6 siblings, and they're all very close in age. My mom had 2 siblings, and they all had kids, so it was a lot of us first cousins running around. And because my mom and dad both are the youngest of their siblings, I was like the youngest. So being the youngest, I got a lot of special treatment and treated like the baby, but I also got a lot of, I had to grow up faster than everybody else, because by the time I was hanging, I was 10 or 11 and my cousins were 14, 15, 16, 17, I wanted to hang with them and go to the mall on Saturdays with them. So I had this very cool thing of kind of being babied and being, felt special, but also having to grow up fast. And, my mom was a social worker for 28 years.
Wow.
Retired and did that job and raised me. My dad, been in my life, is one of my best friends now. He was around. We lived together. They were together until I was about 5. Then they broke up. We moved in with my grandmother. I lived there. Then when I was later in life, about 5th grade, my dad got arrested, went to jail for 6 years, came back out. My dad is a guy, very special guy. He's had open heart surgery 3 times in his life. Been shot a couple times, stabbed a couple times. Dropped out of school when he was in 9th grade, so not a formally educated guy at all. Learned how to read, to a point where he could read a whole newspaper in the federal penitentiary. And but he's just one of the smartest people I've ever met, just because he has a natural ability to figure things out, and he has a curiosity that's just kind of uncontainable, and that's where became the base and the foundation of everything I am, is that curiosity that I learned from him. And his mom, my grandmother, who outraised me, who ran after hours. We were talking about earlier, on Fridays and Saturday nights. In her basement, you could buy liquor. She'd give the food away for free, and then there'd be a table for craps, a table for poker, and a table for pity pat. And she took a cut of the game, of all the games. So I was there every Friday and Saturday night, because my parents were 22 when they had me, so they were still out in the streets having fun.
Still relatively young.
They're really young. So on the weekends, I got dropped off Friday when my mom got off work, 5:30, 6 o'clock, or sometimes straight from school. I go to my grandmother's, and I see my mom again probably Monday after school, because my grandmother it was like a built-in babysitter. There was 50, 100, 150 people there. So that was my first job, cleaning up. In the morning when all the players would be done playing. But that foundation is what I grew up with, and I still use the foundation for everything that I do today.
I want to rewind and then go back and come back to this point what you just made with your mom being a social worker. Was that kind of the base of, did she come home and share those stories with you?
She would.
Yeah.
She would come home and share some of the stories with us, for sure. She worked, back then we called it the welfare office. Today they call it, it's for the county, Department of Jobs and Family Services, towards the end of her career. But at the beginning, she worked in the fraud department. So, as I'm sure you know, when we were kids, people got paper food stamps. So when you would mail those, they would get literally mailed in the mail, and people would claim that theirs got stolen or the mailman, and then they wanted more sent. Well, she was in the department that would research that and go out and meet with people, and people would come in the county building where she worked, and she would talk to them and interview them and ask them why they thought they needed food stamps. And she did that for 28 years, and she would definitely come home and tell me stories. And I think her stories would, be motivating a bit because of, but also very heartfelt because what she didn't make a lot of money doing what she was doing, I don't know, $25,000, $30,000 a year, but it was something very noble. And it was a job. It was a job for her, but it was noble, but it was also motivating that, I would go down to visit her at work and you would just see people with kids and not being able to take care of them. And I didn't never want to end up being like that.
Yeah. So as a young Maverick Carter, in Akron, growing up, like, what was your dream? Like, what did you want to be?
My dream, it's funny, I was just talking about this. My dream originally, like most young black boys growing up in the hood loving sports, I wanted to be a basketball player or a football player. That was my dream at the beginning. And then, in our neighborhood, you don't get to see anything else, really, but like people with jobs like my mom, which is not if you have ambition, you're like, I want something more than that. She was making enough to keep the lights on and keep food. We didn't ever go without lights or water or food, but we had rough times where, might go a day or two without the heat on, but we always had food, but I was ambitious and wanted more, but the only people in our neighborhoods that you seen had ambition to get more were drug dealers.
No doubt.
And I didn't necessarily want to do that because my dad went to jail. My dad was a drug dealer, went to jail when I was in the 5th grade. So I knew how that kind of, I got a real sense of that early, like the feds coming in our house and arresting my dad. But I didn't see anything else. So I was like, I didn't have any ambition besides that until in the year in between my 6th and 7th grade, I got to play AAU basketball. And one of the guys who I played on the team with, his dad was the athletic trainer for the Cleveland Indians. He played on our team, and they lived in this beautiful big house in the nicest suburb outside of Akron. And we got to go to a game one time with his dad, and I got to see his dad. And it was the first time I realized that there were jobs not even around, but literally in sports, so I instantly connected, he has a big house in this beautiful neighborhood, and he works in sports, but he's not a player. So I was like, you can work in sports and you don't have to be the guy hitting the home runs.
Real.
He was in there taping ankles and taping wrists, and he got treated like one of the players. As you know, the trainer gets treated like one of the guys. He had the gear and everything on. It was the first time I realized that existed. And at that very moment, all the way until I was in college, I wanted to be an athletic trainer. That was like, I went home and told my mom, that was my dream forever. I wanted to be an athletic trainer.
That's crazy. That's the first time I ever heard that.
Yeah, because I thought it was so cool. And I thought it was so amazing that I saw his house. So I'm like, I know he does well. And he gets treated like one of the players, but he doesn't play. So it was my first exposure to that. I was 11 years old.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that because I got exposed to something different when I went to prep school. And I come from a good family, kind of similar to your experiences in Akron. My grandmother and my mother raised me. And then I go to MCI and I'm staying with a host family. And every weekend I would get exposed to something different. And all of a sudden I'm seeing that, it's nurses and doing physical therapy on some of the athletes at the University of Maine. But having guest houses and fucking vacation homes and just having this different way of living. And I thought growing up, the only way you can be successful, selling drugs, hooping, or being an NFL player. That was just that's life. But I didn't know that you can get exposed to other things and actually make these dreams come. So I echo exactly what you're saying, and I'm following the lines of exactly what you said. But Just tell me, like, when did you know that you wanted to play the game of basketball and that you could play the game of basketball at a high level?
I love basketball my mom says it goes back to when I was a kid. I was fortunate. I had two older cousins on my mom's side and my dad's side, one a male and one a female, who went to the local high school in our neighborhood we grew up, and they were both really good basketball players. Mm-hmm. And they both would let me, when I was a kid, their coaches would let me come around. This is back to they graduated high school in 91, so this must have started in the late 80s when I was like 6 years old. Yeah. I would go to practice and just hang out, and, from that moment on, I just loved basketball. And when I realized that I played college, not on the high level like you did, but I played mid-major college basketball. And the first time I realized that I could really play, that I was pretty good, is I went to five-star basketball camp I went as a freshman and did very well, made the All-Star team. I went back after my sophomore season, and I happened to play on a team with Jay Will. And Jay came to camp, and obviously you were on that level too, so Jay was like, as far as it goes, that I played against, he was the best high school point guard I ever seen. Wow. By far. And we played on the same team at five-star, and we won the championship.
What position was you playing?
I could play like a combo guard.
Okay.
But because I played with Jay, I played off the ball. You want the ball in Jay's hands. And Jay was just incredible. And he was, from New Jersey. I remember he came to camp, it was hype, and what school was he going to go to? He obviously eventually chose Duke. But me and him played together, and I was a year younger than him. He's a year older than me in school. But the type of player I was never like, I couldn't jump the highest, I can't run the fastest, I'm not the best shooter, dribbler, but I could do everything pretty good. But the thing I know the game really well, so I know I'm rolling with him, just get to the lane, run the floor, get to the open spots, because he do all the hard stuff. If you can just get to the lane and make a shot, and I did that that whole week of camp, made the All-Star team. We won the championship. Never forget, we played Steve Blake's team in the final. And Jay had this thing with Steve Blake. It continued on to college, but he wanted to dominate Steve. And he was the first guy I seen that was like a fierce competitor and like the best, and wanted to prove he was the best every minute. And we won. And after that summer, I started getting letters from every school you could think of because we won. And I did my job very well. And Jay and I made this connection. We're still friends to this day. Going back, that was when I was 16, so that was 22 years ago. And at that moment, I realized that I could play. I could play in college, and I wanted to keep pursuing basketball as like the thing. Because before that, I played football. I'm from Ohio. We play football. Everybody plays football now. Yeah. Everybody play. They put footballs in your incubator when you're a baby if you're a boy in Ohio. So I love football. And I played football all the way through high school and thought about playing college football. But at that moment, I decided I'm going to play college basketball.
So check it out. I had a lot of business moguls on this show, the Tuff Juice podcast, and it's been a privilege to see how they evaluate talent. LinkedIn, hiring the right people is one of the best ways to help your business grow, but it shouldn't take time away from your priorities. With LinkedIn Jobs, it doesn't have to. With some of the tools, LinkedIn Jobs are literally changing the hiring process. LinkedIn Jobs screen candidates with the exact skills you're looking for, so you can hire the right person fast. Things like collaborations, creativity, adaptability. LinkedIn looks beyond the work skills and puts your job post in front of the qualified candidates who match your business requirements perfectly. That's how LinkedIn makes sure your job post is seen with people that you want to hire. People with the skills and interests that will help your business grow. There's no wonder a person is hired every 8 seconds on LinkedIn, and why companies rated LinkedIn Jobs the #1 hiring platform for delivering quality hires. So check it out. Find the right person today on LinkedIn Jobs. You can pay what you want and get your first $50 off. Visit linkedin.com/toughjuice. Again, that's linkedin.com/toughjuice. You heard it first here. Terms and conditions apply. Did that always help you, like the game? Like you said, you wasn't the fastest, you wasn't this or that, but you evaluated the game a little different than everybody else. Did that help you in life also?
Yeah, absolutely. It helped me. I approach life the same way. I go to work every day at my company, and we have people at the company. Everybody at the company is better than me at something. I'm good enough that I can contribute to everything, but what I try and bring is the same thing I did on the court, was like a holistic view of what's going on, the 100,000 feet view of what's going on, where we're going. And I played basketball the same way. I was never the best at anything. I was like, I'd be on the court. I was never the best at anything, but I could play with anybody because I know how to play. And as you know, great players like yourself is the most thing you want is somebody who knows how to play. Because you'll do all the hard shit. We need a bucket. We can throw it to you or I play with LeBron or play with Jay. Well, you can throw it to a good player and go get. That's hard. Yeah. But then all the little things that come easy and natural to me, which as you know are hard to some players, I just thrived at doing those. I know how to screen. I know how to rebound. I can guard a bigger player. I can guard a smaller player. I pass very well. So that's how I approach life and business also, is like, I'm never going to be the best, marketer, engineer, or at products. We have the best at our company in that, but I contribute a little bit, but I try and see the whole field.
Yeah. Speaking of seeing the whole field, bring us up to speed on your relationship with LeBron and how you guys first met.
Yeah, we LeBron and I go back a long way, literally 30 years now. We met at my 8th birthday party. I was from my neighborhood's on a hill. It's called North Hill. And at the top of the hill is like a neighborhood of homes, small apartment clusters, all low income neighborhood, where my grandmother bought a house there in the 60s and eventually gave it to my mom, who actually gave it to me. I still own the house. But at the bottom of the hill was the housing project. So we would go down there to play with those kids, and those kids would come up. It's one neighborhood, it's just separated literally by a hill. And LeBron was from the housing projects at the bottom of the hill, and it's literally called the Bottom. That's what we call it. Like if you're from Akron and LeBron knows you're from Akron, you say, where you from? He would say, I'm from the Bottom, which, it literally was at the bottom of the hill, and it was also socially and economically at the bottom. So we met just being in that neighborhood. Then he moved around. Then in high school, I'm older than him. He came back. My senior year was his freshman year. And that year, we really connected and bonded and became more of like a brotherly relationship. It was obvious he was going to be a much better basketball player than me. But for that 1 year, ironically, I could be as good as him on any given night, but he was way better than me, and we had a really good team. We really bonded. Our team went 27-0. We won the state title and finished, I think, top 15 in the country in USA Today. And then he went on to obviously do everything he's become. But since then, our relationship that we had back to high school has kind of been the same ever since. A little bit of older brother, younger brother thing, like going back to things like he learned how to drive in my car. I had a 84 Chevy Caprice that I still have, actually.
That thing's clean, right? Yeah,
super clean, by the way. I had to restore it. Made a little money, I was able to restore it. Now it's restored nice. But I got, as I call it, the heavy Chevy. But I taught LeBron how to drive in that Chevy. He learned how to drive because I was senior. I was 18. I had a license. I had a car. And he would come stay with me, and I would let him, on the way home, there was like my street, going down the street, there's like at every intersection there's a stop sign. There's like 4 from the busy street to my house. So I would let him hit all those stop signs. So we just had that connection, that bond's been the same way ever since. And now, he's got a family, I got a family. We're older now, but we still have that same connection. I learn from him, he learns from me, and we've just been exploring the world together ever since, going back 30 years now.
Yeah. When did you make the decision to basically stop pursuing your athletic career and take interest on the business side and say, you know what, LeBron, I got you?
I didn't really go full go at it, but I got an internship in between my freshman and sophomore year at Nike, and I moved to Beaverton for 3 months. And that was the first time, taking the story back, I realized, oh, because I had seen athletic training, then I saw this other part of the sports business, which is kind of marketing and working with athletes to move products and sell things. And specifically doing it at Nike, who's the best in the world at it of all time, right? They built a $200 billion business off of the idea of building products for athletes and then telling those stories. So I went there, did that internship, and I wasn't, like, at that moment, I wasn't ready to be done with basketball, but I had transferred from Western Michigan. I went back to the University of Akron. My high school coach got a job. But going Division I, I had to sit out a year. So all I could do was practice that year that I transferred. And that following year, so it would have been going into my junior years when I kind of made the decision, like, you know what? I'm not going to play in the NBA. Maybe I could play overseas, but I'd rather get my career started. And I had an opportunity because of my time at Nike, and most importantly, because of LeBron. I'd become LeBron, and he knew I had the experience from my internship. And then I had consulted with Nike for the year I set out. And he was like, bro, whatever shoe company I sign with, I'm going to put it in my deal that you go to, that they offer you a job and you go work there.
That's crazy.
So I was like, I'm going to have that opportunity. So I was like, instead of play a couple more years of college and go overseas and fuck around, who knows what that could be, 5, 8, 3, 10 years, I might as well just get my career started now. So I could start to build something that can last.
That's crazy. Like, who thinks like that as a teenager? LeBron came out of high school.
Yep.
And did y'all have some mentor or somebody schooling y'all on ownership and stuff like that all the way back then? To position yourself like that? Yeah,
not necessarily one specific person, but we had a great group of people, starting with, he was 18, I was 20 or 21, I'm 3 years older than him. Well, he was 17 then,
Dang.
So I was 20. But his mom was always great, Mont Glow. We had Lynn Merritt, who Lynn, I'm sure, who works at Nike still to this day, who I interned for, who's been a mentor of mine and his since then. We had spent time with Jay-Z. So, and it wasn't, but why I hesitated at first, because they were mentors, but it wasn't like Jay was sitting us down like, do it this way and do it that way. We were just fortunate enough, and he let us be in his circle at certain times, not all the time, and we were able to learn and watch and study and see what he was doing, and Lynn was helping us too, for sure.
How important was, ownership in everything that you guys was doing?
At the very beginning, it wasn't at all, because we didn't even know what that meant. But when I left Nike, when LeBron turned pro, I moved and worked in Portland and worked there for 2 years or 2.5 years. And then when I left, that's when we really started digging into the idea of like ownership. And the word ownership is like, it's thrown around as like owning a piece of something or owning a business, but we thought about it as like ownership in everything that you do, not just for money. And it's less about ownership and more about kind of value creation. And if you're going to create value, making sure you get to share or own all of that value that you create. Because as people, we all, whether you work a job or you play in the NBA or whatever you do, you create value. You're creating value. So you played basketball. How many seasons did you play?
15.
You played 15 years. So you played on franchises. You played in the NBA. And you were a part of the value chain that has, the franchises are worth drastically more. The NBA is worth more. And you always have to be balancing like, okay, how much am I worth? And it's not just about making money, but I'm creating value? How am I capturing that value? How am I using it? So it really became about that. I don't think back then we were sophisticated enough to articulate it that way, so we just used the word ownership. But that's what it really was about as I look back on it.
When you was going through the process of it, was you evaluating some of the guys that was signing certain deals or was going through certain situations ahead of y'all?
Absolutely. I wouldn't even say some, all.
The good and the bad, obviously.
Every single guy, you were in the league then too, it was just a different way of thinking back then. And the thing that I studied most was like value creation and who gets to share in that value and how does it get created and who owns it, and then also thinking about what does the end look like, right? You got to, even though we were at the beginning, you have to start thinking about the end now. So what does the end look like? And as it wasn't like, this like supernatural, like, oh my God, why was it, like this, I'm lost for words, but this premonition we had of like how it should look. It was just literally, we were looking at the end of some guys' careers going like, oh, that's not how we wanted to end.
No doubt.
So if you don't want it to end like, it's like a bit like I always tell people, it's like, I produce movies and TV shows now. It's a bit of this, you do some of the same. It's like being a detective. A detective starts at the end. They start where the crime happened, and then they go backwards, right? So they know someone was shot in this room and it was a 9mm gun because we got a 9mm casing. Now they got to backtrack and find a 9mm gun, find the motive, blah, blah, blah. So I was just looking at the end going, okay, so I'm at the end. If I go to the end right now and I see how this guy's career's ending, how it's ending for his friends, the people who've been around him, and I'm looking at this going, this is not what I want. So now I just got to go backwards and build it backwards. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Build it backwards from where I don't want to be.
How important was it for you guys to change that narrative?
At the beginning, it wasn't even about changing the narrative. It was just selfish. Like literally, selfish in the sense of the word is like, I want it different for myself.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't start, and I'm speaking for us, so I think LeBron would say the same, and Rich and Randy. It was like, we didn't start thinking about, the narrative is changing until probably we were 5 or 10 years into it, or maybe it was sooner, but for us, we didn't think about that. We just thought about like, I want this to be different for us, for me, for us. I want this to be different. We were just like, this is what we should be doing. And then it was like, the narrative is changing on what a basketball player, an athlete, his friends, blah, 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 could be doing. So then we became conscious of it. But at the beginning, we were just like, this is what's good for us as a team, as a unit.
What was the biggest hurdle for you guys, like, moving like that as a unit together?
There were a lot. There still are big hurdles. I mean, honestly, there's a lot to name, but, there was everything from definitely a lot of agents, who most of which I'm fine with now, but most of which, it's an interesting thing because the agents were, it was behind the scenes. Agents are good at that. That's what they do. They have members in the media and things. So, but when I was really pissed about it then, but when I look back on it, I'm actually like, I get it. I understand it in business. In business, it's a scary thing when you think something's gonna, you have two choices in business. I just read Bob Iger's book, and he was talking about, as streaming came in at Disney, this big entertainment company, they had no presence. So you either had to embrace it and adapt to it, or you fight it. And so I see, when I look back and I'm like, I get what the agents were scared about and upset with us about. And they were like, this way that we do things could change. So we need to fight it. We needed to fail. It'd be like Disney, Universal, Time Warner, all going, we need Netflix to fail. Yeah. Because otherwise, if they get bit, which they have, right, then shit is different now. But you should embrace it. But agents were going, wait a minute, now this is a player whose friends are going to represent him. If this works, what does that mean for us?
Yeah.
Right? And the truth is, agents still exist. It hasn't changed.
Good ones.
Yeah, exactly. The good ones still exist, and they're big, and they're doing great. And they embraced it on some level, right? On some level, I hear about players now who sign, and the agent has to hire their friend, or whatever. Yeah. But back then, it was none of that. It was just like an agent, an AAU coach, or somebody put you with an agent, and that was kind of, the agent did everything for you. So that was one hurdle, and as I look back on it, I'm like, I get it. You know what I'm saying? there were other hurdles with players in the league, and so, but those were some of the hurdles that we dealt with for sure.
Yeah, I think none of the agents wanted to become the blockbuster.
Exactly, which I understand.
Yeah.
When I was pissed about it then because I was in it. I was like, I left Nike. I'm going to represent LeBron. By the way, I wasn't even an agent personally, but I'm going to represent him off the court. But I understand if you're an agent who's been doing something a certain way, or any person in business for 15 or 20 years and has been really good to you, and now this thing shows up that could disrupt it. That's scary, but that's how life goes. You either have to embrace it and get ready for it. If you recognize it and go, oh shit, this is gonna work, or you fight it, and if you fight it, a lot of times you could become blockbuster,
Yeah.
right?
So what's going on? I got something else for you. It's a wireless world, and everyone needs a great pair of wireless earbuds. But before you go dropping hundreds of dollars on a pair, you need to check out the wireless earbuds from Raycon. You already know Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of other premium wireless earbuds on the market. They sound just as amazing and top audio brands you know. And Raycon's latest model, E25, is the best one yet. It comes with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and that's never a bad thing, banging out. A compact design that gives you a nice noise isolating fit. Raycon's wireless earbuds are so comfortable, perfect for on-the-go listening and taking phone calls. For me, it's a game changer. When I'm in the gym, I'm in the gym lately, I could be doing sprints, dribbling, lifting weights. If I can have a quick timeout for a business call, I handle my business and get right back to the workout. Unlike some of your other wireless options, Raycon earbuds are both stylish and discreet with no dangling wires or stems. You heard me talk about how the company was co-founded by Ray J, and celebrities like Snoop Dogg, Cardi B, and Brandy are obsessed with Raycons. Pick up your pair and see what the hype is all about. So check this out. I got something special for you. Now's the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/toughjuice. That's buyraycon.com/toughjuice for 15% off your new Raycon wireless earbuds. Buyraycon.com/toughjuice. It's a must. Go get that. I know it's a tough question. I don't want to make it a white-black thing, but being black men in that space, do you think that was some of it too?
Absolutely. I mean, you being a black man in America, being a black man in the world, black always comes into it, right? Like, I'm always black. Everywhere I go, I'm black. When I show up, I'm black.
Apologetic with it too.
Yeah, I'm black. So I think it definitely was a played a part, and I think mostly was like, the idea of credentials comes into play, of like, how can you do this? You never did this, this, and this. You don't have the backing. You don't have the certificates. And I think as black people, we've always been denied the opportunity to get any credentials or certificates or whatever the fuck you want me to have to do this job. But if I show up like, I've read, I've studied, I'm ready to learn, I think I could do the job. I don't have the credentials, but as a forget me as an individual, but black people as a whole, the system is not exactly set up for us to be able to go down the path to even get the credentials or the certificates. Then even if we do, it's still another set of hurdles to get to that level. So yeah, absolutely. I think being black played a part in it.
I want to go to like one of the biggest moments in sports history that probably sparked the idea of Uninterrupted and all that happening, the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when y'all came up with the decision, like, what was the mindset behind that? Did you get what you wanted? Is something that you probably would have changed or done differently now that you look back at it?
I would say our goal, like everything we had done up to that point, and since that point, was to do something that had never been done before. A. B, was to pay it forward and help people. Was to see really do something different and something that would be big and really something that would reverberate outside of sports and through culture and life. So I think we achieved all those things. I think it was different. Yeah. No one had ever done anything like that. The $3.5 million that we took the media rights. I shouldn't say we took. In partnership with ESPN, we own that hour of network TV, of cable TV on ESPN, sold it. We sold all those ads and gave that $3.5 million away. Which doesn't get talked about enough. Fine with me, yeah. Right? Those people got the money, so they feel it. And then it reverberated outside of sports. It became a moment that here we are 10 years later and it's still talked about outside of sports. So we accomplished all those things. Did we think it would ever in a million years could be as bad as it was perception-wise and PR-wise? Hell no. We had no idea. And the truth of the matter is, I'm kind of glad we didn't, because if we knew it could be that bad, it might have deterred us from doing it, which would have been a mistake ultimately. Yeah. Even though it sucked going through it, and that, that day to that 365 days later sucked and was hard. But if we'd have known it could be that bad, I'm almost certain we would have said, let's not do it. But hindsight is 20/20 because it worked out. But yeah, that was a big moment for us. Yeah, I thought it was amazing, and the way you guys handled it, you know what I mean? And the production of LeBron, all of a sudden he becomes this villain in a lot of people's eyes. Like, did that bother him? Did that bother you guys? And how were you able to pivot and get some momentum in another direction? I would say it bothered me. It bothered me more so because my best friend, was going through this moment that was very hard for him, that there was nothing I could do, zero I could do to change it, to help him. And I felt I took a lot of ownership and the responsibility for him going through that. But honestly, going through it now, looking back on it 10 years, you realize, a good story has ups and downs and character arcs. So it was all a part of the story, and the ups and downs and the twists and turns and the arc of the character and the person and the human that is LeBron James. So at the time, it was very hard for me because it was just like I just had to sit there and watch my friend go through this shit, and I was responsible for it. And that part was hard. Yeah, but now you're responsible for Uninterrupted in a major way. So speak of, I've done a ton of work with you guys. Yeah, appreciate it always. I loved it, man. Great partnership. Like, what are you trying to do going forward in the future with Uninterrupted? Yeah, what we'd like to do, our brand, our company, Uninterrupted, is right from the beginning, we always wanted to empower athletes. And about, I think it's now 2 years ago, we kind of nailed our manifesto, our tagline, our just do it is I am more than an athlete. And what we really strive to do day in and day out is to really build an athlete empowerment brand. And on one side, we empower athletes to tell stories that they care about, that matter to them. And on the other side, through those stories, empower consumers and audiences to really take something away, not just putting content or products or putting on events just for the sake of doing it. We want to do it with the thread, the feeling of empowerment on both sides, of the creators and the people who are consuming it. Yeah, and also another show that you created, The Shop, and that's like one of my personal favorites. Where did that concept come from? That concept was started by my partner Randy Mims and the guy who heads up marketing for us, Paul Rivera, and my partner. And they had the idea of taking the idea of a very simple idea, which is true to all of us, which is, when you grow up in the hood, the place that you got all the most knowledge was like at the barbershop, because you had different, it was where like all parts of the neighborhood and the black experience came to meet on the male side. So if you didn't have a dad at home, or you were like me, my dad was in jail, but every time I went to the barbershop, there was male figures there there was drug dealers, there was the working man, there were older guys, there was old man Jim who had been working at the rubber factory for 30 years. There was the new hot drug dealer with his hot car parked outside. There was the guys who went to every football game across this, you know, there's just all, there was the firefighter was in there, everybody was in there, and you got to hear these conversations, and it usually was cool because, and it's what we try and do on the show, is you bring people from all different walks of life and very diverse group and have a conversation about topics that everybody can contribute to the conversation. So you'd be in that barbershop as a kid and it's like, you know, the last night's football game would come up, or the Million Man March was about to happen, and you hear like the drug dealer's perspective and the working man's perspective and the older guy's perspective and the younger, and you just soak all that in. So they actually had the idea, Randy and PR is doing it as a podcast at first, and we were like, no, fuck that, we should actually shoot it. And to his credit, a guy who used to be the chief marketing officer at Beats, Omar Johnson, was like, let's shoot it as content. And we did the first one in All-Star Game in Toronto and just built on it and built on it. And HBO saw what we were doing. It was like, we want to make this a show, and that's how it came to be.
Every episode has been crazy, but the pay for play was the one that just kind of just took the world by storm. And I think, what was it, Governor
Newsom.
Yeah, he came over. He came on the show, and he's just like, you know what? We need to sign this and get this thing in motion. Like, what was your feeling, and how powerful of a moment was that for you as you look back at it?
As I look back at that moment, it was just gigantic. It was, you know, first off, to have the governor want to do that. He wanted to sign the bill on the show was just amazing to us. And, you know, we're a show that is about conversation. So, you know, anybody who wanted to, we would have been fine with somebody who wanted to disagree with him to come on and have that conversation with him. But it was a moment that was really meaningful for the show because it cemented that feeling of empowerment, empowering the governor. Obviously, it was a very powerful job to do something, but also he was passing on that feeling of empowerment to college students. So it was kind of the epitome of what Uninterrupted and what we stand for as a company. And then the show is the shop. It was because we had Diana Taurasi there, and we had the governor there. We had men, women, we had everybody kind of conversating on this topic and from different perspectives. We had an agent in the room with Rich Paul, and we had, you know, Ed O'Bannon, who played a long time ago. So we just had all these different takes on what was happening. Ultimately,
when you look at, you know, your legacy, you're doing pretty much everything. You're doing gaming shows, you did Survivor's Remorse, you're doing The Shop, you run Uninterrupted, SpringHill Entertainment, all the things that you have going on. What do you want your legacy to be?
You know, I never, like, look at it that way. I just look at, like, okay, meaning I don't look at it and go, like, what do I want people to remember me as? You know, I guess I'm probably too young, you know, to think about that. But you know, I just think about, like, what type of company do we want to be? And what I'd love to build is to build a company that truly becomes the most culturally inspired entertainment company in the world, that really sets out to empower the whole world. And on one side of that world, you're gonna have creators creating with us, creating content, coming up with ideas, creating products, doing events, and on one side, have consumers and an audience that is a generation that would truly feel the way LeBron personally made me feel, which was extremely empowered.
Yeah, when we look at the end game, and I'm starting to see some of the things that's come together, and I always shoot you a text and say, you know, bro, I saw that. That's powerful. One of the moments, I was in studio at NBA TV, and I'm calling the game, and at the end, we had to sign off. And obviously, we always signing off on something that's monumental in sports. We addressed the crowd at first with the news of, you know, the commissioner and his situation, brain hemorrhage. And then we go back and we left on a high note. LeBron James, being in Akron, watching his son, Bronny, play on that platform. I know how I felt. And I'm not even part of the, you know, the small circle of friendship that you guys have, but how did that make you feel in that moment?
First off, I actually text LeBron. Me and LeBron were going back on text on our group chat, and I was saying to him, the first thing was, because the team they played was he and I's alma mater.
That's crazy.
And it was Coach Drew, who was my junior, senior. He was an assistant there, and then he took over, and he's been the head coach there since 2001. So he's almost 20 years been the head coach. He's 20 years been there as an assistant and the head coach. But he coached LeBron since he was 9 years old. And his son and LeBron are best friends to this day. So Coach Drew's still the coach. So I told LeBron, I wasn't at the game, but I was watching it. It felt weird to root against St. V for the first time in my life. That part felt really strange, like not wanting St. V to win, wanting to see my nephew, ball and get a win for his team. So that part felt weird. But to see LeBron and Savannah, his wife, there at that game was just amazing. It was just an amazing moment to see the family that they've built and the son, their oldest son. They have a middle son and a daughter. Just an amazing group that they've built. And you think about, they met when they were in high school, and LeBron's a kid from the projects who saw, chaos and disarray all around him, and in the projects there's nobody with like a very strong family structure, and to be able to build that is just very strong and empowering. I think of all the great things he's done, athletically, business-wise, building a school, I think the greatest thing he's done and built is his family.
Yeah. The best piece of advice you ever received, and I know you've been around a wealth of knowledge, what was it? And from who?
The best piece of advice I ever received was, the one that comes to my head right away was a very simple line from Jimmy Iovine, which was, if the shit gets bigger than the cat, get rid of the cat.
That's deep.
Yeah, that was a simple line, but makes a lot of sense. And you can apply it to all parts of your life.
I remember, I'll leave you with this. I remember when I was doing my first sideline reporting for TNT. And
How long you been reporting now? How long you been?
I've been doing it now for 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
You enjoy it?
I love it. I really do. I love it, man, because it's so many layers of the discussion that you can go into. And being a former player, I think I feel exactly what the moment is, like, so I know kind of like what to tap into.
Yeah.
But this first time, I was a little nervous to ask certain questions. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to go there with players and go too in depth. But I remember walking past you, and I knew LeBron was going to be the post-game guy because the Lakers just won. And I said, man, what should I ask him? Give me something that, the post of the game, whatever the case you said. Talk to him about his school. And, those are the questions that I wish people would have walked off and kind of highlighted, with me, or say something about, damn, your son just had an amazing night. What was that moment like last night being in Akron and then all of a sudden coming back to Atlanta and getting another quality win? But that's the shit that don't get talked about enough.
Course.
And his face just lit up. He's like, damn, see, I'm glad you asked that. So that was a great lob by you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate it. No problem.
And another lob, man. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm glad you're doing this show. It's amazing, man. This is what I want. I love seeing this. This is awesome for me to be able to be a guest on your show.
Yeah, 100G.
Appreciate it.
You owe me a hand of pity pat, too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.